Hi, I'm Peter Doshi. I'm an associate editor at British Medical Journal, BMJ, and I'm speaking with Fiona Godlee, my boss, the editor-in-chief of BMJ. And the question that I'd like to pose to you is about this proliferation of information today. There's social media, there's blogs, there's more journals than ever before. So what is the point of a journal anymore? The information just seems to be so spread out, and one can find really anything out there that they want to find to confirm their beliefs. So what can one journal do these days?
Thanks, Peter. I think it's a really interesting question. The answer is we hope very much that one journal alone, and especially working with other important journals, will be able to put pressure, if you like, positive pressure on the research enterprise and encourage better practice across the whole gamut of things. So an example is trial registration, the journals clubbing together to make that something that had to happen. Open data, the BMJ has made a stand. We hope that other journals will follow in saying that you have to share your data if you want to publish with us. We want to be a forum where people can come and get trusted information. One journal alone, what can it do? It can take a stand on a few issues and hope others will follow. And it can be a place where lots of voices can be made magnified and listened to and discussed. And I think openness to the voices across medicine and research are hugely important. So, I mean, we're having an enormous amount of fun. You're helping a lot with what you're doing. And I think that innovation and lots of different approaches to this huge problem we face is a way forward.
Thank you.
Now I get to ask you a question, do I? Okay. So we've been discussing the whole problem of the current system for evaluating and disseminating the results of clinical trials, especially in drug treatments. And there's a lot of talk about what we should do in the future, which we talk about the need for independent trials and analysis that is open and individual patient data being made available. So we have a sort of plan for what should happen now. But I wondered if you could help us think through the enormous problem of the legacy of trials published over the last 15, 20 years. Should we bother with them? Why do we bother with them? Maybe we need to do new trials. Or how can we kind of cope with the fact that we know that they are deeply flawed and badly reported?
Yeah, thank you. So this issue of what can we do about the past is really important because most of the drugs that we're taking today, most of the interventions that are out there are things that are based on trials that were done in the past. And so getting the truth about what these interventions does is in large part contingent on our ability to understand what happened in those trials. And we know from the research over the past 10 years, 20 years even, that the availability of information is deeply flawed in two ways. One is that not all the trials that have occurred are published at all. There's no public representation, complete invisibility. And the other problem is that when we do have some representation, what we see is not necessarily what occurred. And so we have to figure out a solution to this problem of what happened in the past, and it's about correcting the public availability of information. And that's where we came up with the idea of the Restoring Invisible and Abandoned Trials initiative, which provides a kind of step-by-step framework for how this can be done in a responsible way. And that's how we're thinking about it, and very happy that BMJ was one of the first journals that signed up to this and is willing to look at newly authored manuscripts for old trials to present them in a way that's accountable.
Okay. Just a follow-up question on that. So why do you think some groups might worry about this riot initiative, Restoring Invisible and Abandoned Trials? What do you think they would see as the challenges? I mean, we're trying to encourage other journals to take part, and you know that not all journals are leaping at the chance to do this. So what's worrying them?
Well, I think one of the biggest concerns is that people think that if somebody else works on a trial and works with that trial data, that they're going to misrepresent it, whether intentionally or unintentionally. They don't really understand what happened in that trial. How can they speak about the trial? And I think the fact is that people have been interpreting other people's work for a long time, and it's essential that people interpret other people's work. as otherwise there's no such thing as dissemination of information. And so that's an unavoidable issue, and there can be misunderstandings, but we have to work with those misunderstandings to correct them rather than cut the enterprise off at its roots. So I think that's one of the big concerns. And of course, if the original trialists and the original authors want to be part of this and want to provide information that might help contextualize what occurred in those trials, they're welcome to do so. So this can be as inclusive of a process as it need be. The reason that the enterprise riot idea exists, though, is because the responsible parties for actually restoring these trials are not doing what they're supposed to do. So somebody else has to take the baton and run with it.
I've got so many questions I'd like to ask you, but I think we'll say goodbye now, and that's been really interesting talking to you.
Yes, it has.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.